If you're listening right now, maybe you felt it too. That quiet heaviness that shows up in the middle of a busy day, or the way life sometimes feels like it's slipping through your fingers no matter how hard you hold on. And maybe, just maybe, you're tired of pretending everything is fine. If that sounds like you, stay with me for a moment, because what we're about to explore isn't a lesson or a lecture. It's more like sitting down with an old friend who finally tells you the truth you've always sensed but never said out loud. And hey, if this kind of conversation brings you a little peace, feel free to hit subscribe. No pressure, just a gentle invitation. The Buddha started his journey by pointing to something we all already feel. Life can be hard, not in a dramatic way, just in that quiet, familiar way we don't always admit. He called it dukkha, but we don't need the word to understand it. It's that sense that things don't always line up the way we hoped. It's waking up some days with a weight on your chest. It's wanting life to stay the way it is, but watching it change anyway. And it's okay, really it's okay, to call that suffering. Not because life is dark or hopeless, but because admitting it is the first gentle step toward freedom. The Buddha wasn't trying to scare anyone. He wasn't saying the world is bad or broken. He was simply being honest, like someone looking you in the eye and saying, "Hey, I see what you're going through. Birth, aging, sickness, loss, these things touch all of us. You can be rich or poor, young or old, surrounded by people or completely alone. Suffering still finds a way to sit beside you from time to time. And that doesn't mean you're doing life wrong. It just means you're human." Maybe you felt it too, that strange mix of joy and fear in moments that are supposed to be perfect. You're laughing with someone you love, and suddenly you feel a tiny fear of losing them. You're holding something precious, and a quiet voice inside reminds you it won't last forever. That's dukkha, not a punishment. Just a gentle truth that everything we hold eventually changes shape. Sometimes it shows up as ordinary pain, the ache in your heart when someone walks away, the sting of disappointment, the grief of losing someone who meant everything to you. Other times it shows up in softer ways, the way a beautiful sunset fades, the way childhood slips away, the way even our happiest memories become just that, memories. And then there's that subtle restlessness beneath everything, the feeling that no matter how good life gets, something still feels just a little unfinished. If you've ever felt that, you're not broken. You're just seeing life as it really is. The beautiful thing is, the Buddha shared all of this not to make us sad, but to help us breathe easier. Because the moment you realize suffering is universal, you stop blaming yourself for feeling it. You stop asking, "Why me?" and instead whisper, "Oh, this is just part of being alive." And something softens inside you. You begin to see that everyone you pass on the street is carrying something heavy. The strangers you never think twice about, they tremble at pain and fear death just like you do. That understanding doesn't make the world colder. It makes your heart a little warmer. You feel more connected, a little more compassionate, both toward yourself and the people around you. The Buddha once compared life to a mountain pressing down on everyone equally. Old age, sickness, loss, none of us escape these things. But instead of scaring us, this truth can hold us like a gentle hand on the shoulder. Because once you see that suffering is woven into the fabric of life, you stop expecting everything to be perfect. You learn to breathe with the messiness instead of running from it. And maybe that's why understanding suffering is the first step. You can't free yourself from something you refuse to face. But when you look at it calmly, softly, without judgment, something shifts. Suffering becomes a teacher instead of an enemy. It shows you where you're clinging, where you're resisting, where you're holding on too tight. And it whispers, "It's okay, you can let go now." As we keep going deeper in this series, We'll explore not just the pain, but the way through it. But for today, just rest in this truth. You're not alone. Whatever you're carrying, someone else is carrying something just as heavy. And the moment we see that clearly, a door starts to open. If this quiet space we're sharing feels comforting, you can subscribe to the channel so we can keep walking this path together. No pressure, just an invitation from me to you. Let's keep going gently. Before we go any further, just take a slow breath with me. Because the next step on this journey asks us to look a little deeper, a little closer into the patterns inside our own hearts. And I promise we'll walk through it gently. If these soft conversations help you feel a little lighter, you can subscribe so we don't lose each other along the way. No pressure, just an open door. So, once the Buddha helped us see that suffering is a part of life, he didn't stop there. He didn't leave us staring at a wall with no way out. Instead, he quietly pointed to the roots, the hidden places where our pain begins. And what's surprising is these roots aren't out there in the world. They're inside us, often growing in the dark where we don't notice them. Maybe you felt it too, that craving for something just out of reach, like happiness is always one more step away. Or the way you hold on tightly to what you love because you're afraid of losing it. Or the way you push away anything uncomfortable, hoping it will disappear if you pretend it's not there. It's okay. Everyone does this. We're all just trying to survive the best way we know how. The Buddha gently pointed out that most of our suffering begins with craving, this quiet, restless longing that keeps us chasing after things, people, moments, even identities. We want pleasure. We want answers. We want a future that looks exactly the way we imagine. And when things don't match those pictures, yeah, it hurts. Maybe more than we admit. Sometimes craving shows up as desire for simple pleasures. A taste, a touch, a moment that feels good. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we cling to those moments, hoping they'll last forever, we set ourselves up for disappointment. Because everything changes. It's just what life does. Then there's that craving to be someone, to be successful, admired, understood, loved in a certain way. We build these pictures of who we think we're supposed to become. And when life pulls us in another direction, we feel lost. Or we fight it. Or we judge ourselves for not becoming the version we imagined. And sometimes craving shows up as the wish to escape, to not feel something, to not face a hard moment or a painful memory. We think that running away will save us, but it usually just pushes the pain deeper, where it waits for us later. There are also softer forces that keep us stuck, grasping for what we want, pushing away what we hate, and getting confused about what's really happening. You've seen it in your own life, right? Holding on too tightly. Avoiding what scares you. Getting tangled in thoughts that make everything feel heavier than it needs to be. It's okay. Really, we all get caught in these loops. And the more honest we become with ourselves, the clearer things get. You start to notice craving in small moments, like checking your phone even when you're not expecting anything. Or replaying a conversation, hoping it will somehow feel different this time. And you start to see resistance too. The way your chest tightens when life hands you something you didn't want, or when someone's words hit a soft spot you didn't know you had. The Buddha wasn't telling us to judge ourselves for this. He was simply inviting us to see it, to notice the way our minds reach, grasp, push, run. Because once you see these patterns, they lose a little of their power. They don't grab you as tightly. You start to breathe again. Think of it like sunlight coming through a window. The dust in the air was always there. You just couldn't see it until the light touched it. Our restless patterns are the same. When we shine awareness on them, they become clear, honest, simple to understand. And from there, things slowly begin to shift. And maybe the most comforting part is knowing that you're not alone in this. Everyone you've ever admired, every person who seems calm or wise, they've all wrestled with craving, fear, confusion. The only difference is they learn to look at these things with gentleness instead of shame. As we move deeper into this journey, I want you to remember something. You don't have to fix anything all at once. You don't need to force anything. Just noticing what's happening inside you, even for a single breath, is already a step toward freedom. So if this slow, quiet way of looking at life feels right for you, you can subscribe and walk with me through the next part. We'll keep exploring softly, without pressure, one breath at a time. Sometimes, when we sit with ourselves long enough, we start to notice something a little strange, something we might have missed for years. It's that quiet feeling that the person we think we are, this shape we've carried around in our heads, may not be completely true. And maybe that sounds a bit weird, but it's okay. A lot of people go through life feeling this faint gap between who they are and who they believe they should be. And if you've ever felt that gap inside you, well, you're not alone. I've been there too. There's a moment in everyone's life when the noise settles for just a second, and suddenly you catch yourself watching your own thoughts like you're standing outside of them. It's like you're listening to a story being told in your mind, but you're not really the one telling it. You're just noticing it. And maybe that's the first time you start wondering, if I can watch my thoughts, then who's the one watching? That question can shake you a little bit. It feels like a soft knock on the door from somewhere deeper. And you don't have to force anything. You don't have to chase an answer. Just let the question sit with you for a while, like an old friend dropping by. Maybe you'll notice that the person you call me is something you've been carrying, shaping, protecting for so long that you forgot to ask whether it even fits you anymore. And it's okay if it doesn't. It's okay if you've changed. Life changes us without asking for permission, and that's part of the beauty of being human. When you start to watch your inner world this way, gently, honestly, you might notice that some things you thought were unshakable aren't. A feeling comes, and then it goes. A thought appears, then fades. A worry that once felt so heavy suddenly becomes just another wave passing by. And there's something freeing about that, isn't there? Almost like realizing you're not trapped inside the storm. You're the sky that holds all of it. And hey, if any of this feels familiar, if it touches something quiet inside you, then maybe you'll want to stay with me as we keep walking through these ideas together. No pressure, just a gentle invitation. If you want more moments like this, soft, simple, honest, go ahead and follow the channel. It helps us stay connected, and maybe it gives you a place to breathe a little in your busy day. But even if you don't, I'm still glad you're here. Truly, because sometimes the most healing thing isn't an answer. It's just knowing someone is sitting with you while you explore the questions. Maybe you've noticed this before, those moments when your mind suddenly pulls you into a memory or a fear or a dream about the future, and before you even realize it, you're gone, lost in a world that isn't really happening right now. And it's okay. Everyone gets swept away like that. It's just how the mind moves, like wind passing through an open window. It doesn't need permission, it just comes and goes. But sometimes, if you slow down a little and watch it gently, you'll see something interesting. These thoughts, these stories, these worries, you don't really control them. They rise on their own, almost like they're coming from a place beneath the surface. And when you step back even a tiny bit, you begin to notice you're not the one creating them. You're the one hearing them. That space between you and your thoughts, that's where everything starts to become clearer, softer. And maybe you'll realize that the pain you've carried, the things you've blamed yourself for, weren't entirely yours. Maybe there were thoughts your mind produced over and over until you got tired of fighting them and just accepted them as me. But you're allowed to question that. You're allowed to lay those old stories down. And it's okay to take your time with it. Nothing inside you needs to be rushed. When you see a thought for what it is, just a moment passing by, it loses a bit of its weight. Something that once felt like a mountain turns into a small cloud drifting across the sky. And the more you notice this, the easier it becomes to sit with your own heart without trying to fix everything at once. You start to see that you're not broken. You're just human. And being human means you're a mixture of light, shadow, memories, hope, confusion, strength, all of it living together inside you. And maybe, just maybe, you'll begin to look at yourself with a little more kindness, a little more patience. You begin to say, yeah, I feel this, and it's okay. I'm allowed to feel this. That's when things begin to soften, not because you force them to, but because you finally let yourself breathe. If this way of seeing things feels gentle to you, if you like walking through these quiet corners of the mind with me, then you're welcome to follow the channel. No rush, no pressure. Just a simple place where we talk softly about the things most people carry, but never say out loud. I'm grateful you're here. Truly, there's a quiet moment that comes to everyone sooner or later, a moment when you start wondering why certain things hurt you so deeply, or why some patterns keep repeating in your life no matter how much you try to change. And maybe you had times when you felt tired of your own reactions, like, why do I still feel this way? It's okay. Truly it is. You're not doing anything wrong. You're just finally beginning to see what's happening inside you. Sometimes the things that shape us don't show themselves on the surface. They hide in old memories, in fears we picked up without even realizing it, in small moments from childhood that stayed tucked away somewhere quiet. And you go through life thinking, this is just who I am, when maybe it's only something you've been carrying for too long, something that never got a chance to be understood or healed. When you pause long enough to sit with those feelings, not pushing them away, not judging them, you might notice they're softer than you expected. You might even realize they're trying to tell you something gentle, like a whisper saying, hey, I'm still here. And I know it's not easy to face those parts of yourself, but you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to be brave every second. Maybe just being honest with yourself for a moment is enough. Little by little, you start seeing that every feeling has a beginning, and because of that, it also has an ending. Nothing inside you is permanent, not the sadness, not the fear, not even the loneliness you sometimes pretend you don't feel. It all moves, it all changes, and when you notice that something inside you relaxes, almost like you've been holding your breath for years and finally let it out. And maybe you'll start giving yourself permission to rest, permission to be gentle, permission to not have everything figured out. Because life isn't a straight line. It's messy and confusing and beautiful in ways we only understand after we stop trying to force everything to make sense. If this way of talking feels comforting to you, if it makes your heart feel a little lighter or less alone, then you're welcome to stay with me on this journey. You can follow the channel if you like more moments like this. Quiet, warm, simple. No pressure. Just a small space where you can breathe and feel understood. I'm glad you're here more than you know. There comes a point somewhere in the middle of all the noise and rushing, when you begin to notice something softer underneath it all, a kind of quiet presence that's been with you the whole time. Maybe you felt it before in those rare moments when everything slows down, like when you're sitting alone late at night, or when the world outside gets still for just a breath. And in that soft space, you might realize there's a part of you that doesn't get caught in the chaos, a part that simply watches, a part that just is. It's strange, right? How you could be overwhelmed 1 minute, drowning in thoughts, emotions, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, there's this gentle awareness noticing everything without getting swept away. You might think, where did that come from? But the truth is, it's always been there. Maybe you just never had the chance to see it clearly. And when you start paying attention to this quiet place inside you, life feels a little different. Not because the problems disappear. They don't. But because you're no longer tangled up in every single feeling that passes through. You start to see things like, oh, this sadness is here right now, instead of, I am this sadness. That small shift, it changes everything. It's like stepping out of a storm to watch the rain from under a safe roof. And maybe you'll notice how thoughts come in waves, rising, falling, disappearing into the same stillness they came from. Some are loud, some barely whisper, but none of them stay forever. And that's comforting, isn't it? To know you don't have to fight everything inside you. You don't have to fix every thought or emotion. You can just let them move, like clouds drifting across an open sky. And hey, if you're listening to this and something inside you softens, even just a little, maybe that's your heart recognizing something familiar. Maybe it's remembering a truth you've always had, but somehow forgot along the way, that you're more than the stories playing in your mind. You're more than the weight you carry. You're the space that holds it all. If these moments feel meaningful to you, if they help you breathe a little deeper or feel a little less alone, you're welcome to follow the channel so we can keep sharing these quiet conversations together. No pressure, just an invitation to stay connected whenever you need a calm corner in your day. I'm glad you're here. Truly, let's keep walking gently, one soft breath at a time. There's something tender that happens when you start seeing your inner world with a little more clarity, almost like cleaning a dusty window and finally noticing the light that was always trying to come through. Maybe you've had moments like that, moments when a feeling rises, and instead of reacting right away or trying to push it down, you simply pause and look at it. And in that pause, something inside you shifts, just a little, just enough to make you breathe differently. You might begin to realize that so much of what you've carried wasn't really you. It was old fear, old habits, old beliefs you kept repeating, because life taught you to hold on even when it hurt. And it's okay, you did your best with what you had. Anyone would. We all try to protect ourselves in the only ways we know how. But when you start to see that you're not your fear, not your anger, not even your loneliness, a kind of gentle freedom appears. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet softening inside your chest, like something heavy finally letting go of its grip. Maybe you feel yourself opening up without forcing anything, like a door that's been stuck for years, suddenly moving again. And maybe you'll notice that underneath all those thoughts and emotions, you've never really been damaged. You've just been human. And being human means you feel deeply, sometimes too deeply. But that doesn't make you weak. It makes you alive. There's a beauty in watching your inner storms without getting lost in them. You start to see patterns, not to judge them, but to understand them. You start to feel your own tenderness, the part of you that just wants to be held, understood, seen. And you begin to realize that healing isn't about escaping anything. It's about finally allowing yourself to be here, fully, gently, without pretending. And if while listening to this, you sense a quiet peace spreading through you, even for a moment, just let it stay. Let it be your reminder that you're allowed to move slowly. You're allowed to be soft. You're allowed to grow at your own pace, without rushing to reach some final answer. If these moments feel comforting to you, if you want more of these quiet, honest conversations, you can follow the channel. No pressure, no obligation, just a soft place for you to return to whenever life gets heavy and you need a little lightness. I'm grateful you're here. Really, it means more than you know. There comes a moment, somewhere along this journey inward, when you start noticing something almost surprising, that even the hardest emotions, the ones you used to run from, aren't here to punish you. They're just parts of you asking to be seen. Maybe you felt that those times when sadness shows up without warning, or when fear touches your chest in the middle of a quiet day. And for so long, you might have tried to bury those feelings, to keep them hidden so no one could see the parts of you that felt too fragile. But when you sit with them gently, something shifts. You begin to notice that these emotions aren't enemies. They're messages. Maybe they're saying, I'm tired. Maybe I need rest. Or maybe they're simply reminding you that you've been carrying more than you ever admitted, even to yourself. And it's okay. You don't have to push them away anymore. You see, every emotion has a rhythm. It rises, it peaks, it softens, it leaves. Nothing stays forever. Not the heaviness, not the pressure, not the thoughts that whisper old stories you've already outgrown. When you give space for your emotions to breathe, they start losing their sharpness. They become softer, almost like a child who stops crying the moment someone finally holds them. And maybe you'll realize that what hurts most isn't the feeling itself, but the years you spent fighting it. The years you tried to convince yourself that you had to be strong every second. But real strength isn't about holding everything together. Sometimes real strength is allow yourself to fall apart a little, to feel what scares you, to whisper, yeah, I'm hurting right now, and that's okay. And you don't need to fix everything inside you today. You don't need all the answers. Sometimes just sitting with yourself, quietly, softly, is enough. Sometimes healing doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes like a slow sunrise, warming you without you even realizing it. If listening to this brings you a small sense of comfort, or a little clarity, or even just a feeling that you're not walking through these inner storms alone, then I'm grateful. And if you want more quiet moments like this, more soft conversations you can return to whenever life feels heavy, you can follow the channel. Not because you should, but because maybe it feels good to have a place where your heart feels understood. I'm glad you're here. Truly, let's keep going gently. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the pain itself, but noticing how often we try to avoid it. Maybe you felt that pushing thoughts away, distracting yourself, pretending that everything is fine when inside you feel a little storm brewing. And it's okay. That's how we've all learned to survive. But maybe, just maybe, there's another way, a softer way. A way where you can let yourself feel without letting it take over. When you start giving yourself permission to be with your feelings, something quiet begins to grow. You start noticing the spaces between your thoughts, the small pauses between emotions, the tiny moments where nothing is pressing, and suddenly you realize, oh, I can sit with this. I can breathe through this. It's not about making the pain disappear. It's about not letting it define you. And you might notice that your reactions aren't permanent either. Anger rises and it falls. Worry comes and it fades. Even grief, even loss, all have a rhythm. When we try to fight or control them, they feel endless. But when we watch them gently, with curiosity instead of judgment, they start to soften. You start to see that you're bigger than any single feeling, bigger than any one story your mind is telling you. Sometimes this means sitting quietly, maybe closing your eyes, and just listening to your own heart. Maybe it's noticing the tension in your chest, the tightness in your shoulders, the way your thoughts keep looping. And maybe it's okay if you don't know what to do with it. Just noticing is already a kind of courage. Just noticing is already a kind of freedom. And here's a little secret the Buddha pointed out, though he might have said it differently, quietly, softly, in his own time. Freedom isn't something far away. It isn't a prize you have to earn after years of struggling. It's already here, waiting in the small moments where you stop reaching, where you stop running, where you let yourself simply be. So if sitting with this feels like a gentle place, if it gives you a little space to breathe, you can stay with me. You can follow the channel for more of these quiet conversations, soft reminders that you're not alone in your heart, that it's okay to take your time, that it's okay to be human. I'm grateful you're here more than words can say. And in this gentle noticing, maybe you'll start feeling lighter, just a little, step by step, breath by breath. That's enough. That's everything. And now, here we are at the edge of this quiet journey together. Maybe by now you've noticed something soft inside yourself, something that's been there all along, waiting for a little attention. Maybe you feel a bit lighter, or maybe you just feel seen. And it's okay if it's both or neither. What matters is that you gave yourself these moments to be here, with all of yourself, without rushing, without judgment. Sometimes the most profound lessons don't arrive with grand gestures or sudden revelations. They arrive quietly, in noticing your breath, in feeling your heartbeat, in simply allowing yourself to exist without forcing anything. And as you do that, you might see that freedom isn't somewhere in the future. It's here, in the way you meet yourself gently, in the patience you give to your own heart. Life is full of changes, full of ups and downs, full of moments that challenge us and moments that surprise us with beauty. And it's easy to get swept away by all of that. But the quiet truth is, you don't have to fight every wave. You don't have to have all the answers. You just need to notice them, breathe, and let yourself be carried along gently. And maybe that's the real gift of this journey, to recognize that suffering isn't a punishment, and life isn't meant to be perfect. There's beauty in struggle, there's wisdom in pain, and there's freedom in letting yourself see it all clearly, without being trapped by it. The more we notice this, the more our hearts soften, and the more space we create for compassion, for ourselves, for others, for life as it truly is. If any of this touched you, if it gave you a sense of calm, of understanding, or even just a quiet pause in your day, you're welcome to follow the channel. It's a place for these gentle conversations, for soft moments that remind you it's okay to be human, to feel, to notice, to grow, step by step, breath by breath. Remember, you're not alone. Every heart carries its struggles, every mind its storms. But in the noticing, in the soft attention we give ourselves, there's a kind of liberation, a little light in the midst of everything. And that light has always been there. I'm grateful you stayed, that you listened, that you allowed yourself to be here. And I hope, just a little, it brings you peace. May it remind you to keep going softly, keep breathing gently, and keep trusting that life, with all its challenges, is always somehow unfolding just as it should.